5.10, acceptable use of information and other associated assets. So what's required? Well, rules for the acceptable use and procedures for handling information and other associated assets shall be identified, documented, and implemented. So what we're looking for here is actually two things. You're looking for a documented policy because it does say that this shall be documented and implemented. So you're looking for a policy because although the requirement is that it's rules for the acceptable use, rules well, how are you going to document the rules? Well, that's your policy. So you need an overarching acceptable use policy. And then behind that, you may have procedures about how you will use those particular assets. Because again, there's two things that we're looking at here. It's not just physical assets; it's things, it's informational assets. So the acceptable use, for instance, of personal data. How will personal data be used in your organization? How will it be tracked? Is it acceptable, for instance, for people to, on an email, put passwords or people's salary information, or perhaps put their information about bank and sort code, that kind of information? Is that acceptable? You may say it is, but that's for you to determine and for you to set out those rules within your policy. The procedures would outline what you expect people to follow. So a procedure is a step-by-step process or a procedure that you would go through, maybe to encrypt data or to request a new device. Maybe it's about configuring a server, for instance. These are the kind of procedures that you might want to document. But again, in this, we need to think about those two aspects. It's a policy and a procedure, and it's about information, how you will, the acceptable use of information, but also the acceptable use of assets. For example, I remember working for an organization once, many years ago, who they found somebody had on one of their internal servers had set up their own business and were running their own website from the servers within this organization. Had they not got an acceptable use policy, then it would have been one of those conversations, obviously a difficult conversation to have with a member of staff, but it would have been one of those conversations of, well, you never told me that that wasn't acceptable. I thought it was fine. I was doing my job and I was doing it well and I was performing well. What's wrong? You've got lots of disk space. You've got lots of capacity. I'm an administrator. Then what's the problem? So acceptable use policies are extremely important. And the kinds of things you might want to include is acceptable use of email, acceptable use of particular software tools. You might want to talk about the internet, and probably should talk about acceptable use of the internet. In this modern day and age, of course, acceptable use of AI. Are you going to permit it within your organization? The one that everyone talks about, of course, is ChatGPT. Is that acceptable to use in your organization or not? Maybe that's something you need to include within your acceptable use policy. And you should also outline as well what your expectations are of employees. What you deem to be unacceptable behaviour. So it could be that when we talk about acceptable use of email, it may be that you state quite clearly that anything that is defamatory or anything that brings the organisation into disrepute isn't permitted. Anything of a sexual nature, for instance. So it's about you setting your expectations. What is acceptable and isn't for you as an organisation. Like many things, I like to bring things to life a little by saying, think about this in your own context, in your own home. Without writing these things down, you have an acceptable use policy at home. The acceptable use of your living room or your bedrooms or your house in general. So these are the kinds of things you need to think about when you're writing the policies and the procedures. What is acceptable? What does acceptable mean? what feels right for you as an organization. So there you are, a 5.10, 5.10. I hope you found that useful. And if you did, please do like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to share, because every time you share this, it reaches someone else who might find this useful and interesting. Until the next time, stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. All the best. Bye.